What is up, ladies and gentlemen? It is the one and only Cjthecheesedj here, and we're back with another ARK INSIGHT video. And today we're taking a look at the Beezelbuffo and the Casteroides, aka the frog and the beaver. That's right, you've heard the story about the tortoise and the hare. Now you're going to hear the story about the frog and the beaver. I have no idea what the story is. Sorry guys, I don't mean to get your hopes up, but I have no story whatsoever. Anyway, today we'll be comparing their stats, their health, their stamina, their melee damage, their movement speed, their swim speed, as well as their torpor. Now, before we get into it, guys, I just want to say a quick thank you to all the people who have been viewing my videos, all the new subscribers. Thank you very much, guys. It means a lot to me. But without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so today this is going to be a little bit more harder because these two kind of dinos are in kind of different classes to each other, in my opinion. Now, you've got the Beezelbuffo, which is a carnivore, and you've got the Casteroides, which is a herbivore, and they're slightly different kind of class of dinosaurs. Now, you can see here the Beezelbuffo has 220 health, 190 stamina, but no oxygen stat. The Beezelbuffo doesn't have an oxygen stat. Whereas if we come across to the beaver, he's got 450 health, 180 stamina. He also has 380 oxygen. So this determines his swim speed as well. He's limited to how much he can go in the water by because he's got that oxygen stat, obviously. Whereas the Beezelbuffo doesn't use any oxygen. So for now, we'll get into that a bit later on, but for now we're just going to take a look at their health. Now you can see already the Casteroides has the larger health pool at almost double what the beaver has. He has 450, whereas the frog only has 220. So he has double that of the frog's health. God, this is going to be an entertaining episode. His stamina, however, is slightly lower than the frog's at 180, while the frog only has 190. But without further ado, guys, we're just going to jump into their movement speed and see how quick they can go. So we tested their speed, and the frog managed to complete the course in 6.4 seconds, which is expected, as you can see from his little hibbity-hobbity movements. He is quite fast and effective in moving quickly. The beaver, on the other hand, took its sweet time getting across the course. It managed to complete it in 12 seconds, which is double that of the frog's. Now, this is kind of bad in a way because he doesn't have much movement speed. You can see that he's very slow at moving, which can be disadvantageous, especially when you're trying to get away from predators such as Rexes. Next, we looked at their stamina. Now, even though the frog has 190 stamina, 10 on top of the beaver, it only managed to sustain sprint speed for 11 seconds, which is surprisingly very bad. You can see the stamina bar on the right there depleting rather quickly, and it only lasted 11 seconds, and that was it. The beaver, on the other hand, with its 180 stamina, managed to sustain sprint speed for 36 seconds. So, all in all, if you calculate this and times it by its movement speed, the beaver is actually more efficient in long distance traveling than the frog is, due to it having the longer sprint speed as the stamina. And even though it was slightly slower than the frog, it still is able to move further and faster than the frog because the frog will have to rest for stamina every 11 seconds. Next up, we tested their movement in the water. Now, I was surprised at how slow the Beezelbuffo was. In my opinion, he's not that fast in the water. You'd have to level up his movement speed quite a bit to be able to use him effectively in the water. You can see that he's able to utilize it without any stamina depletion though, as well as him not having any oxygen, which is also a bonus. However, a downside is that he can't actually attack in water. Neither his primary attack nor secondary attack allow him to attack in water, which can make him slightly bad for deep ocean water adventures. So we then use the beaver in the water, and something that surprised me here, he has an oxygen stat, but he doesn't actually use oxygen. You can see that it's not actually depleting at all, which I've never noticed before because I do have a beaver in my single player playthrough, and I've never actually noticed that he doesn't use oxygen, which is really weird. But anyway, the beaver is able to attack in water. You can see that we're attacking, which makes him slightly more efficient for kind of like light ocean water travel, traveling through the rivers, all that sort of stuff, as he's able to utilize his attacking. And swimming does not use any stamina as well, which is also a bonus for the beaver. However, in my opinion, I think he's slightly slower than the Beezelbuffo. We did do some testing running from rock to rock, and the beaver managed to do it slightly slower than the frog did, which once again, the frog is faster. However, he does have that stamina, which isn't effective in water though. Next up, we took a look at their special abilities. Now, these two dinos both have unique abilities that are pretty much unique to only them. So the Beezelbuffo is able to harvest cementing paste, which I'll show you in a little bit, from just insects by itself. So you just go up, eat an insect, and you'll harvest it automatically. which is quite a unique ability. He also has quite a unique jumping ability, which allows him to sail pretty high up into the air. He's able to pretty much get very high, get a lot of distance in that air, which makes him quite useful for mountain travel as well as traveling through the swamp. Now the beaver is a harvesting machine. He is nuts. You can see here he gathers thatch, wood, berries, everything pretty good. However, he also has two extra added advantages in my opinion. His saddle, which I don't currently have on me, you're able to actually craft stuff. It acts as a smithy. So his saddle acts as a smithy, which is a huge boon if you're traveling and you're pretty much living that nomad life in ARK. Now, as well as this, his inventory makes everything much smaller in weight. So you can see here he's got 100 stack of wood, that weighs only 10. And you're thinking to yourself, wait a second, that's not right. 100 wood can't weigh 10 weight. Well, you're right. He has an ability to lower the weight of everything in his inventory space, including metal. Now, you can see here, if we take it into our inventory, it makes it 50. So he reduces the weight cost by 5 times the amount, which is rather impressive. I do need to make a correction. I did say he decreases the weight of metal in his inventory. That's incorrect. He decreases the amount of stone and wood, not actual metal in his inventory. Next up, we took a look at their turning radius. Now you can see here the beaver has it's a pretty decent turning radius. I mean, it's pretty good. However, his sprinting one is kind of bad. You can see there is quite a big gap in between him and his circle. So it's not the tightest of turning radiuses, but it is still pretty good. You're able to circle and maneuver rather well, which in my opinion is pretty good. Like I wouldn't really complain too much about his turning radius. The frog's turning radius is pretty much the same as the beaver is in my opinion. He's pretty much got the same kind of turning radius going for himself. You can see here we're turning pretty well. However, one downside that the frog has that I have noticed is you can't actually sprint while turning. You can see here while we're doing this motion, I'm trying to activate the sprint button, but it just doesn't seem to work. And you can see that while we're sprinting, you can see we're sprinting here. We can't actually sprint and turn, which I find is rather weird. However, he does have that jumping ability, as well as one extra attack than the beaver. You can see here, that's his primary ability. I'll turn over here so you guys can actually see it. He's got a primary ability where he just sticks his tongue out and does the side swipe, which is his secondary ability. Now this one's more effective for gathering cementing paste off dinos, while this one's better for inflicting torpor, which is another thing that the frog has. He's able to inflict torpor damage on other dinosaurs, which is rather effective in terms of taming. It's not quite effective as a scorpion or trank arrows, but it is still quite effective. Next up, we took a look at their melee damage. Now, I was quite surprised. The Beezelbuffo only has a base melee damage of 12, which is very low for a dinosaur. Now, we did the special multiplications, divisions, all the extra formulas that we needed to use, and found that the Beezelbuffo has a melee damage DPS rate of 13.69. Now this is the same for his secondary attack as well as his primary attack. So 13 DPS, which isn't much. You're not gonna be able to kill much with the Beezelbuffo. Another thing that I've noticed that I didn't discuss earlier in the video is that the Beezelbuffo can't actually walk backwards. So you can see here we're stationary and you can't actually move backwards. You can kind of jump backwards, but you can't move backwards on its own. While the Casteroides you can actually move backwards with. So we then took a look at the Casteroides' melee damage, and his melee damage, his base melee damage was 28. We then times it by his current melee damage, which is 125.8, and we found that his DPS is 35.2 per second. So that is quite a lot of damage in comparison to the Beezelbuffo, showing that the Casteroides is slightly more powerful, well, pretty much a lot more powerful in terms of melee damage than the Beezelbuffo. And he has the added bonus of being able to move backwards, you can see there. This also dictates the amount of harvest he gets, so amount of wood, thatch, berries he gets as well, just to let you guys know, just in case you didn't know already. So the Beezelbuffo's attacks do torpor damage. Now, these effects do stack, and the target's torpor will increase by 3 times the damage dealt over 10 seconds. So the amount of damage that the Beezelbuffo does, as you saw, he was only able to do 13 DPS. If we do that 2 times and hit an enemy within that 10 seconds, that'll do a total of 26 times 3 in torpor damage. So 26 times 3 is about 80 points of torpor damage in 10 seconds, which isn't too bad. Okay, we then took a look at their torpor. Now, as you can see, the beaver only has 350 torpor and the Beezelbuffo only has 200. Now, we're going to use the Beezelbuffo first, and he only took pretty much 2 trank arrows to knock out. We give him the 5 seconds interval in between, and boom, 2 arrows to knock out. Now the beaver, however, took 3 arrows to knock out, which you'll see shortly. And this was the third arrow. You can see the 2 other ones sticking out of his head there. And he's down at 350 torpor. He just fell short at 307 on the second trank arrow. However, on the third trank arrow, he was able to get knocked out. Now the beaver's torpor drains at a rate of 1.1. You can see there, draining at 1.1. While the frog only drains at 0.3, which makes the frog slightly easier to tame than the beaver, as he requires less narcotics than the beaver. However, the beaver does has the extra torpor. Sorry. We then spawned in new frogs and a new beaver in order to make them fight. Now these ones are slightly stronger. You can see they're level 37 respectively. So we're going to let them fight and see who wins. So you can see that we've unclaimed the Beezelbuffo. So we'll see how this goes. Now we're going to just quickly turn the Casteroides off following us, and let's see how we go. So a quick summary while these guys are fighting. In my opinion, neither one is better than each other, just because they're in different classes to each other. You can see the Casteroides is dealing a lot more damage than the Beezelbuffo, which is to be expected, and he's dead. That didn't take much. There's no denying that. However, I definitely recommend that you should tame both these dinosaurs, as the Beezelbuffo is invaluable due to it being able to gather cementing paste of bugs, and the Casteroides is also invaluable due to its ability to minimize the weight in its inventory, as well as harvest so much wood and berries and thatch and everything. So I would definitely recommend taming both these guys. Now before we end the video, here's a quick summary table of all their dinos and their stats that we tested out in the video. So you can see there their health is there, their stamina is how long they took to run out of stamina while sprinting, oxygen's there, their weight, DPS, how much damage they did, how quick they completed the course, which is their movement speed, the amount of trank arrows they used to knock out, as well as their torpor drain per second, which you can see there in the table. Alas, that comes to the end of another video, guys. Let me know what you guys thought of this one down below in the comments. Let me know what you guys would like to see next. But for now, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.